And who will be the real losers and the real winners? For more, we're joined by Tom Panos, auctioneer, and Nick McKim, Green Senator. Morning to both of you. Tom, we're going to start with you. Are you for or against the changes to the capital gains tax discount?
Nat, I think we need to look at it further because I don't think one lever is going to solve the housing problem in Australia, particularly when I'm selling a lot of houses on auctions on Saturday to people that are mum and dad investors. I'm talking about nurses, school teachers, and what's interesting, 75% of investors own one property. We're not talking about people like Adrian Portelli running around in a Maserati with lots of properties. We're talking about mums and dads that have chosen investment property as financial security for their children.
Yeah, trying to diversify their nest eggs, aren't they? Nick, you've labelled the capital gains tax as the most unfair tax break in the entire Commonwealth Tax Code. Tell us why.
Yeah, it's a huge tax break. It costs the Commonwealth budget an eye-watering $22 billion a year, and 60% of that $22 billion goes into the pockets of the wealthiest 1% in Australia. And I guess if you're going to argue that we shouldn't make a change to the capital gains tax discount, if Tom wants to talk about, school teachers and nurses or bartenders or cleaners, how is it fair that any of those people who go to work every day to earn a living, how is it fair that they pay double the tax to the Commonwealth Government than someone who sits around at home flipping investment properties? It is the most unfair tax break on the books, and it needs to be reined in.
So, Tom, Nick's basically saying if it's costing the government that much money, why don't we get rid of it and save the government so much money?
Yeah, so I think if you look at that Oxfam report that came out yesterday, where they're talking about capital gains tax, they weren't just talking about property. I mean, my issue is that I just like to look at further modelling to try and work out the real wealthy investors versus the ones that own just the one property. And one of the unintended consequences, if we don't look at this very fairly, is that we're going to impact the most vulnerable cohort of people in society, and that is the tenants. Because if you think about it, if you're going to take away attractiveness for people to invest in property, you're going to take investment property out of the picture. Less rental properties means more demand by tenants, which means higher rents, and ultimately who gets impacted? The tenant, the most vulnerable of the lot.
So, Nick, how do you respond to that? Also, too, the idea here is to reduce the tax to 25%.
Yeah, that's right. Well, look, firstly, in relation to rents, I mean, Tom makes his money out of the real estate industry, and people in the real estate industry want house prices to keep going up, which of course is pricing millions of Australians out of the great Australian dream of owning their home one day. If we did rein in the capital gains tax, what that would mean would be that some property speculators would sell their properties, which would then be available for renters to buy, which actually would take demand out of the rental market and put downward pressure on rents. Whereas at the moment, you've got renters who are trying to buy a house bidding against property speculators who've got this massive tax break in their pockets, which is making it impossible.
Nick, what are your figures showing on how many people, if this was brought in, if the discount was stopped, how many people would actually sell their investment property? Because a lot of people in the industry are saying people will just hold on, because if they don't get a discount on their capital gains tax, they'll just hold that investment for 10, 15 years. How many are you going to sell?
Look, they might, and it depends, where you set the rate and what other changes you make, and people will make their own decisions in terms of whether or not they sell their properties. But what it would mean is that when renters go along to an auction and bid for existing properties on the market, bid against property speculators, this massive leg up that property speculators have got would not exist or would not be so great, and that would level the playing field, and it would allow more first homeowners or aspiring first homeowners into the market.
Tom, is this an easy policy for the government to deliver, given that, as you said, other assets are involved here? Should they be looking at other areas of investment?
I think what we've got to be looking at is looking at a multifaceted approach at solving this issue. Just pulling out one tax lever, thinking to yourself, you're going to solve the problem. Ultimately, we have an issue. It is a supply issue. Just mucking around with taxes or even putting in these 5% deposit schemes that attracts a lot more buyers only pushes prices up. It doesn't actually push supply. What I'm saying is we should have a wider discussion where we're looking at things like reducing the red tape so we have more supply, maybe looking at rezoning, and in migration, maybe having migration going in at the same rate as properties being built, because that is another issue that we're facing. It is a supply issue, and what I'm saying is we need to have a deeper conversation and to have a look at all aspects that affect housing affordability. We already have in Australia probably the highest, or up there as one of the highest, capital gains tax rates in the world.
Yeah, freeing up land. We put that to our housing minister. But yeah, I think everyone would agree with you. Supply is still the biggest problem. Thank you very much for both of you putting your side on that today.